Hi guys, welcome back to Java Full Stack Made Easy, and this is session 55. Previous session we spoke about how do we retrieve the data and bind that data onto a table. Basically this data we have actually created it into an array. So in this case, in this next example, what we are going to do is that we are going to add a new item into this particular array. If you remember my previous examples, in the previous examples I have shown you how are we going to bind this student property to the input boxes that we have created. So similarly what we are going to do now is that we will be binding this properties, that is roll number, name, gender, marks and semester, and the same will be added into this array. And the agenda, the goal of this demo would be to show you the concept of two-way data binding, where the moment I add something into the array, and since the array is bind to this particular table, the data should be reflected. Fine. So let me go back to my example that we have discussed. So far we have created a model, right? So the model remains the same, so I'm not going to change anything into the model. So model remains as we have discussed in the previous session. Then the app dot typescript, inside the app dot typescript, if you remember, I created an empty students array, and then I added these values into that empty students array, right, on inside a constructor, because I wanted to load this value the moment this component is loaded. Fine. And similarly after that what we have done is we have simply bind those properties onto a table here. So what I'm gonna do now is that onto this HTML page I want to actually create an something like an add student. I want to include that feature, and I want to allow the user to provide the details and add the student. Okay, so let's see how are we going to implement that. Fine. So below will be what display student will be given here, and the above one will be used for adding a new student. Fine, so I'll just say add student. So this is again in future also this will be very helpful. Instead of adding it into this particular array, we can send the same to an API or a database, or maybe we can send it to an API and then API can communicate with the database and store it into the database. Fine, but the concept remains the same itself. So now for adding a student I would require the properties of the student, like a roll number, name, gender, marks and semester. So these are the details that I would actually like to add for the student. So here my focus is not really on the uh, look and feel of this application. Later in our future sessions we can improve the look and feel of that. So as for now I'll just take a pre-tag, and then I will organize the details. So I want a roll number to be created, and in front of that roll number I want an input type will be equal to number. Fine. And then this input type number will be bind to the student dot roll number. Fine. So I'll, for binding I'm taking the ng model. That means we are going for two-way data binding. So a student object is already created in my TypeScript, so I'll go for the student object dot roll number. Fine. So similarly like I have created a roll number, I would like to add more, like what we have: gender, semester, name and marks, right? So we have this student dot roll number. We will create a name, gender, semester and marks. So let's create all of that. Name of the student, then gender, then what, marks, and then semester. So semester remains number, marks remains number, and the marks will be student dot marks, semester will be student dot sem, and this is the gender for which I'm going to create radio buttons, and this is going to be the name of the student, which I will change to input type is equal to text, because here the user is going to enter the text, right? And for gender obviously we will be taking the radio buttons. If you remember the previous sessions, we have already created the radio buttons, and from the radio buttons we have selected the values, right? So I will just go back to my previous repository, and this one I will call it as day 55 possibly, right? So this is session 55, so it has to be our day 55 slash demo 1. Okay, push to array, or maybe let's call it as demo 1 add student. Fine. So as of now, I don't have anything, so I'll just create it as test, and later I'm gonna update the same thing. Fine, let's go to the Angular directory repository. Day 54, I have binded this radio button, so I'm just gonna copy everything from there itself. Fine. So I have the radio buttons here. Input type is equal to radio. So for gender, I'm gonna copy all of this. Same thing, right? So I'll go here, and here we were binding this gender. So let's take up that. Fine. So 3 gender I have. Gender. So 3 inputs will be created. I want that to be created one after another, because it is inside the pre tag, so it will be created as we have created it, right? So radio button, then let's just save it and see how it looks like first, and then we can uh, check the detail. So here it says student does not exist on type app, so let's check if we have created that student or not. So here still we have not created a student object, so that we can simply bind those student properties, right? So let's go ahead and create the student object. Here I have already created a student object, right? So I'll just copy that student object, and I will allow my user to enter those values. So let's just copy that, save it, and that should resolve our problem. So the error is gone. So let's first just look at how things looks like on the page. So you can see that there is roll number, name, gender, marks and semester, all of that is there. And I also want what I'd like a button to be created, and upon click of that button a submit should happen. That means the data should be added into this table. Fine. So let's create a button as well. So once again I will go back to my app.html, and in the app.html I'm gonna create a button here. So to create a button, we already know that we are just gonna create it as button, and then upon click of this particular button some event should occur, right? So let's write the event. Click event is equal to, let's call it as add student or something. So this function I will be creating in my TypeScript file. As of now there's nothing in here, right? So I want to create that student, so I'll be creating this add student, and then let's call it as add student, and in this particular function I'm gonna pass in this particular object, okay, so that the values will be taken up, and that values will be added. So let's pass in this student as an argument there. Fine. And the property add student, obviously this does not exist onto my TypeScript, so I'll have to actually create this property add student. That means I have to create a function that adds up the student, so I have to create this. That's why that error was taken. So now when we say add student, so this is the actually a new student will be pushed to the existing array. So let's see how do we do that. So here we have a student of type student will be given to us, right? So this is a local variable basically. So now what I'm gonna do is I will just be saying what uh, whatever student I'm creating, that should actually be taken from here, and then that should be added. So what I will do is I'll say this dot, I have the array created students dot push the student object that is coming up to me. Fine. So I will also perform a console.log just to check if that student details are actually taken from the form or not. Fine. So let's save everything and then test whether our application behaves as we expected it or not. So let's also open up a console and check. Okay, so as of now nothing is there on the console and I already have roll number 1, 2 and 3. So let's add up some roll numbers, maybe roll number 10, Sachin, male, and marks, let's say 90, semester, some semester like 5 or something. The moment I click on this add student, you can see that the student object is actually created here. The console.log is happening and also the same details are added in here as well. So what we have actually done is a pretty simple and straightforward thing. What we are doing here is, let's understand that once again, one after another. The first thing that I have done is I have actually created the input fields for the user to fill up the details. So I have created these input fields for the user to fill up the details, and each and every input field is actually bind to the student's property. Student is actually a plain object I have created here. So if you can notice that here, I've created a simple student object which doesn't have any values yet. So whatever values are being given by the user during the runtime, all those value will be added into this particular student object. And that student object itself is something that I'm passing it with the add student. So all the field value will be passed to this local student object, and that student object itself will be taken up here. So you can see that. So that student object is taken up here, student, and then the same student object I'm just trying to push that into the array, and that's the same thing is happening upon click of the add student. Fine. So this is how pretty simple and straightforward this thing is. uh, yeah, one more thing what we can try is that we can also check, since we have already created this student here. If you can see that the student is equal to new student is created here, the object is created, and that is the object which is bind to all my properties. So any value change onto the HTML should reflect here itself. So once again we will go for the console.log, and in the console.log now I'm gonna go for this dot student, which is the instance variable, and yeah, I'm just printing that as of now. So once again let's go up and add up some more details, test, and then mail, and then any marks, maybe some 12 or something, semester 1. Just click on add student and see that. So you can see that even that this dot student, the data that the object that I have created, since it is two-way data binding, even that particular object is reflected. So if in this case we can directly take the instance variable rather than going for a local one. And also you can notice that when I reload this, the array obviously will be reloaded and the newly added data will be gone. So obviously this is a limitation because it's an array. So the moment I am reloading the page, it is reloading all the values that are added to this array. So since the newly added value was part of the array after clicking on this add student, that's why that value does not remain as it is. Fine. So what we can do is we can also go ahead and reduce the amount of code that we have written here. That is, if we wish to take up this local student object, we may, or we can just create a student like this without having the uh, object being passed here like a student. So we can go for an add student without this because we already have a this dot student being created there. So we can just go for that this dot student in the push method like this, the instance variable itself. Fine. So we'll go here and we will save this as well so that the errors are gone. And now once again we can test it. So roll number 5, test, any gender, and then the marks, and then the semester. You click on add student, the details are immediately added. So that way we can bind the properties, and then instantly we can see those values present into the table as well by performing a push method. Push method of an array adds the details into an array. Hopefully the concept is pretty much clear to you. So I will be sharing both this HTML and TypeScript to you. So let's go here, Java full stack made easy, and that was actually day 55. the repository that I have created, and the demo one add student was something which I wanted to create. Let's edit this and add up the details. Fine. So in this case, I am actually not focusing much on how my form looks like, so I can make my form much more prettier. So this is my app.html and then the app.typescript. So it's very easy to perform these things. You can also try and splice the data from an array by clicking on a delete student. Fine. So you can try that on your own. The splice method is used to remove the data from an array. Fine. So the next thing that I would like to show you is about binding the checkboxes. So there might be a chance where you want to actually bind a checkbox in your form. So how will we do that? So let us understand how do we deal with a checkbox, because a checkbox contains multiple values. In this example, what I had was I had the radio button, right? So in the radio button, we are selecting only one value and that value is being added, right? But when we have a checkbox at that time, there is a chance that suppose if we have a checkbox like the skills, like Java, HTML, CSS, and Angular. So out of those skills, you might select just Java, right? You might select Java and HTML. You might select Java, HTML, CSS. So there can be two values, there can be three values, there can be four values. How are you actually going to take up all those values, right? So those are the random value that are selected. So how are we going to take up that? So let's understand how do we deal with the checkboxes. Fine. So once again, for that, what I'm gonna do is I'll just clean up everything that's returned here because I'm done with the that example. So I'm just gonna simply clean up everything that's returned here and focus only on the concept of checkboxes rather than uh, mixing it everything and confusing you. So I'll directly be going for the only thing that is required for us. Fine. So let's see how do we do it. Okay. All right. So for this, what we would need is, first of all, uh, in a checkbox, we have to actually do what? We have to write multiple values. So we will be creating an array of values that will be bind to the checkbox. So let's create the arrays of values that will be bind to the checkboxes, which is kind of options for the checkboxes. So let's call this as maybe skills itself, and which will be of type string array. So I'm creating that, and let's provide in the values for the same. So the values what I want to give is let's say I want to give HTML, then I want to give CSS, then I want to give Java, and then I want to give Angular. Okay, so these are the values which I am thinking of binding it to the HTML, right? And later we will think of what values are selected. Fine. So and how those values can be taken and all that, we will think of that later, but just understand how are we going to bind this value to the HTML. So I'll go to the app.html, and on the app.html, let's provide in what? Let's provide in a checkboxes here. Fine. So let's create a div, and in this div, let's create the checkboxes. So for this, what I'm going to do is the div will now contain ng for, and since I have already created a skills array there, so I'm going to say let skill of skills, right? So which means in every loop I'll be getting a skill, and that is the skill which I want to add to this input, that is a checkbox, needs to be generated multiple times. So input type, I'm going to create it as checkbox. Fine. And the value, I want to bind that value to this skill, so property binding, right? So I'm using a property binding. Value will be equal to the skill that will be iterated and will be taken. So as long as there are skills into this particular array, that many number of checkboxes will be created, right? So as of now, it's that itself, and in front of that, the skill name has to be displayed. So I'm just going to do that. So let's save it, and let's save the app.typescript as well, and see how the checkbox looks like now. So you can see that HTML, CSS, Java, and Angular, all those values are actually selected. So this is one basic thing that we are doing. What we have done is we have created an array, and the same array is bind to the checkboxes. So first I'll share this example with you, and then enhance the same example for you guys. Fine. So let's add up a new file and then call it as demo2. So this is going to be our demo2 checkbox binding. And obviously in real time also this will be very much helpful whenever you are creating registration forms, things like registration forms. Fine, so let's call it as app.typescript, and then let's take app.html as well. So pretty simple and straightforward TypeScript and an HTML. Now comes the challenging part, that is what I want is whatever user has selected here, like Angular and Java is selected, I want to show that Angular and Java. So if somebody just selects Angular and HTML, I want to show that Angular and HTML here. So let's see how are we going to do that. Fine. So once again, let's go back to our code part and understand how are we going to do that. First of all, obviously, when I'm performing a check, so I have to check what on change event has to be traced, right? So on change in Angular is change event, right? So let's see how are we going to trace that change event of this, right? So I'll go here inside this, and I want to generate a change event. Fine. So a change event, once again, I have to create a method, and then in that method I want to check what all values are being selected, what values are being unchecked, what values are checked and what values are unchecked. So let's call it as uh, on change or value change or change val, anything. You can create a function with that. So then I also want to pass in the skill that is being selected, and then I want to pass in the event. Okay, so the dollar event. So this is our once again what template variable. So this event actually tells you what all things are happening at the backend. So I have to now create a change val function here. Fine. So let's create that change val function and understand what is happening inside the event. Okay. So no, I have not copied it. So I'll go here and I'll just copy this change val, which takes two arguments. So this is my change val function that takes up two arguments. One was the skill, right? So let's take that skill, which is of type string, that will be given to me, and then it gives me an event. Okay, so let's call it as an event of type any event, and as of now I'm just gonna console log both the things so that you can understand what exactly I'm getting from the form. So let's console log the skill and also console log the event that's being generated. So console.log event. Okay, let's save it and see how things work here. So I'm gonna save both, and there we go. And for this I have to open up a console to inspect the elements. So let's go for the console, and you can see that the moment I click on CSS, the string CSS is being selected. That is the skill, the first argument into the change val function. The second argument was an event, and you can see that the event has happened. So it says that is trusted event. Yes, it is trusted event. The type change event has happened. The target is an input, and when I expand this, you can also check what is the value that is being selected. They can see that it is an input coming from the source element input, and you can see just see around the details. Fine. So event actually gives us all the information about the things that is happening at the front end, right? So what is being, whether it is being checked or not, and what value is being checked. So it's telling us the skill with the event. It is actually giving us that details, right? So you can see that default value, what is the value being selected, whether it is checked or not. So all the details are actually being triggered into this event. By this we can get to know what is happening. Fine. So you can now see that CSS is unchecked, and at that time the checked value will be set to false. Okay, so whether it is checked or not will be you will be getting it from here itself. Fine. So by that I can actually get to know the information about the event, or maybe the value that is being selected or not. Okay, so at the HTML side what we have done is we have simply created a check value function there, change value function there, and we have passed in two argument, which is the skill, whatever skill is being checked, and then the event details, and that is something which we are actually tracing into the TypeScript, right? So now what I want to do is that I want to check whether the values are selected or not. So whatever values are selected, I want to store it into a array, right? So let's create an array for the same. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just call it as selected values or something, fine. So or let's call it as selected skills. That would be a better name. So let's call it as a selected skills, and the selected skills will be of type string array again. So which is an empty array as of now, because for now no values are selected when the application gets when we are running this application. So upon change this event, whatever events is happening, so if the event target, if it is checked, then we are going to add the checked value, the checked skill into the selected skills. If it is removed, then we are going to just remove that from this particular array, right? So what can happen is I might just check on this angular and then uncheck it. So if I check it, it is going to be telling me that it is checked, and if I uncheck this, the checked status will be set to false, right? So whether it is checked or not, if it is checked, it will be added to an array. After adding it to an array, if it is unchecked, it will be removed from, it has to be removed from that array. That has to happen. So two things has to be considered. So for that, what I'm gonna do is I'll just remove this console log, because we have already seen what that console log shows us: the skill, whatever skill is selected, and then the event tells us what skill is, whether the skill is checked or not, and what event has happened, and all the other details. So what I'm gonna do here is a simple if condition. I'm saying that if uh, this particular event that I'm saying, so if the event dot target dot, now this target checked property is something which I'm checking. The event target checked, then what I'm going to do is I want to add that particular skill into the empty skill, fine. So what we are going to do is this dot selected skills dot, we know that the push method is used to add the data into the array. So what needs to be added? The skill, whatever skill is selected, that skill has to be added into this particular array, fine. But there is a chance that if the user might check it and then uncheck it, so even that has to be checked, right? So in an else condition, what I'm gonna do is I will just be removing that particular skill from the selected skills. So how do we trace that? For that we would require an index of that. So I'll say this dot selected skills dot the index of the skills, fine. So that gives me the index of this, and that index I'm gonna store somewhere. So let's say let the index is equal to, and whatever index is there, if it is greater than -1, if it is not there, then it will be returning me a -1. If it is more than -1, then it is going to return me 0 or something, and in that case I'm gonna remove that. So wherever the index position of that element occurs, that has to be removed, and one element has to be removed. So for that, what I'm simply gonna do is I'm gonna check if the item is removed. So for that I can simply say index, if it is greater than -1. So if the index if the index value is 0 or something, that means if it is more than a -1 at that time, it means that somebody has unchecked that particular skill. So and that skill has to be removed from this selected skill. So I am just going to say that splice, okay, and splice what, splice one item from which position, from the index position, one item has to be removed. So that's how the concept of splice works, fine. So let's just save this, and now whatever items are selected, that needs to be displayed onto my HTML page as well, right? So let's just perform a selected skills and display the selected skills here. So like what we have done in the previous case, we created a div, and then as long as there were the values inside this checkbox. We just added that into a checkbox. Now we want to just display that similarly. I'll just copy paste this thing, and instead of this checkbox and all that, so I'll not take a checkbox and everything. I'm just gonna add that, and let skill of selected skills, right? So that's the array that I'm talking about. So let's go here and then call it as selected skills. So skill will be added. Let's just add it into a div. As long as it is there, let's add that up. So we will save this, and we'll save the app.typescript as well, and then we will test whether those things will be added or not. So the moment I select HTML, you can see HTML is present. When I add Java, so HTML and Java both are selected. So if I uncheck Java again, this is why I have removed that, return that else part to remove that. So the user might check it and uncheck it. So if a user unchecks it, it is going to be spliced. So that's why you can see that if a user unchecks that, take the index of that skill and then splice it, remove that from this selected skills. So this selected skill later can be added into any of the database or anything of your choice. So this way we deal with the checkboxes. So I hope you're enjoying this more realistic approach towards the Angular stuff. So I'll be giving you both of this. So checkbox binding, let's call it as checkbox binding 2. So demo 3, checkbox binding 2. This is a more realistic approach towards the checkboxes. Fine. And this is my HTML. Looks pretty simple and straightforward. One div is for binding the checkbox. Another div is to just display the selected items. Fine. Then the app.typescript. So it's all the app component itself. So it is app.html and app.typescript. So now that we have learned how do we deal with the checkboxes, you can also add checkbox onto your form that we have actually created in the previous example and deal with the checkboxes as well. Fine. So that's it for this particular session. In the next session, we will be talking about the decorators, the @input decorator and @output decorator in Angular. Fine. So if you're enjoying this series, do share it with your friends, like, share and comment, so that I get maximum reach to the videos, and that actually encourages me to create more such content for you. Thank you for your patience. See you in the next video.